Hello, you're welcome back to the Rossie Podcast in association with Shannonside FM. This week we're looking back on Roscommon's 2-point loss in King of Moffat Dr. Hyde Park to Cavan in Division 2 of the Alliance Football League. I'm joined by former Roscommon footballer Conor Devaney to look back on that defeat. We'll also be touching on the new GA rules after the tweaks the FRC made in the past week. Right, I'm joined by Conor Devaney to look back on Roscommon's defeat to Cavan last Sunday by 2 points. Conor, very disappointing loss on Sunday. I actually wasn't at the game, I was away. I know you were there. I was listening to some of it on Shannonside in the commentary, listening to the first half. There was a bit of a breeze there at the game from what I gathered, but it wasn't the gale force that usually is in the Hyde.
No, it wasn't strong enough for one team to have a huge lead like we saw again with Monaghan or anything like that. It was a small breeze, but it wasn't a major factor in the game, I don't think. It was an interesting game. It wasn't a great game. I say that in the sense that it was if you were watching Dublin playing, Kerry playing, Mayo playing over the weekend, it seems that Division 2, as we kind of expected, is a good few levels off in terms of pace alone, we'll say. It was all moving at a slower pace than a Division 1 game. There was some brilliant scores got, but it was at a lower level and a slower pace than Division 1 games, definitely.
Yeah, because I suppose after Roscommon getting back on track in Cork after the Meath disappointment, it was looking like Cavan home, Westmeath away. Like Cavan, Roscommon have always had a good record against Cavan. You think it should be straightforward enough, no disrespect to maybe Cavan going into that game. Maybe complacency came into effect, I don't know, but it's a real bump in the road now going into the last game, not having promotion in our own hands now.
I think it might have been closer to 50-50, to be fair, because I think Cavan were improving, much like Meath were improving as the league was going on. I know that didn't happen for Meath at the weekend, but they were improving. So it was going to be close, but I did think with our forwards, I thought it was going to be enough to get us by Cavan. But as it turns out, they had the best forward on the day in Garage McKiernan, who was absolutely excellent for 50 minutes, and he ran out of steam after that.
Yeah, because there was a few changes to, I suppose, the named Roscommon team, and the players that came in to the named team that was named a couple of days beforehand: Rory Fallon, Eddie Nolan, Ben O'Carroll and Kieran Mercer. And we've seen the likes of Jeremy Mercer and Keith Doyle, for instance, who've been probably two of Roscommon's best players over the league, either rested. I don't know where they're carrying knocks. We're not 100% sure. I mean, if Jeremy, say, was fully fit, it was a bit of an interesting one just to take a pivotal player like that out of the forward line.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. It's difficult to know what's going on. I think we did mention ourselves before the league started in the first one or two games, we did want to see this kind of thing. So, for example, Conor Cox was clearly being rewarded for coming on and doing very well, doing absolutely nothing wrong in any of the games he came on. So he was rewarded. Maybe that was the case. Kieran wasn't down to start, then he did. So maybe there was some last minute injuries to that. I don't know. Overall, a lot of players did okay. I think it was much like the battle around the middle against Meath is where we struggled. And that's not just the midfielders. It was there was a good few different players out there. Ulton was out there. John McManus was being dragged out there by Garage McKiernan a lot, so he was out there. So these are strong physical players. Eddie as well. Doyle when he came on, but we still struggled there to get primary possessions. It was very easy at times for Cavan to just kind of almost push us off the ball and catch kickouts, which you don't see too often. So it's still an area where we come across kind of, I know Garage McKiernan wouldn't be athletic, but the others were stronger athletic type midfielders. We kind of seem to struggle around the middle.
Yeah, and I suppose there has to be an element of concern going into the championship, presuming we get over London in a few weeks' time. You're going into Salt Hill to play Galway, and like Galway, arguably, you know, the men they have around the middle, your Paul Conroy's, Matty Tierney, John Maher, just to name a few, those type of fellas, like, you know, if we're struggling already, it is a concern going into championship.
Yeah, it's a concern, and it's a concern in terms of if you're talking about Galway looking ahead, hopefully, we don't know, but it's a concern watching Comer, and our defence is quite small in stature. Straight away, that's obvious. I mean, John McManus probably isn't. He might be the man to try and do a job there, but apart from that, We're lacking in physicality probably all over the pitch, to be fair, and that includes midfield. So we have to try and play a different way, which is fine on the ball, but off the ball and trying to get primary possession, it seems to be difficult.
What I gathered from, again, just online, a few people, a lot of chances missed, especially in the second half, was there?
There was, yeah. We found it more difficult to score than Cavan. When we did get opportunities, there was a couple dropped short, there was a couple dragged wide to the near side, whereas Cavan, in fairness to them, they scored some really good scores from around the arc. A lot of them were just inside the arc, but they were still excellent scores from the wing. Garage McKiernan scored one outrageous one from a sideline with his left. He tried a few with his right then later on, but it didn't happen for him. But they scored some excellent scores, whereas we struggled to get scores. It seemed to come easier for Cavan. I think one of the reasons for that is when they got forward, we kind of stood off them inside the arc a bit and let them shoot, maybe expecting them not to be good enough to score from distance, but they were absolutely good enough to score from distance in both halves, so the wind wasn't a factor in that.
Yeah, and I suppose we're still getting used to the new rules, and defending, we have to, admit it is harder, so you're going to concede more. Are we maybe just that bit behind some teams in terms of our defending and getting used to maybe just the one-on-one element of it?
I don't know if we're behind, but over the course of the weekend, it was interesting that teams were struggling with the change. So as you said, now it's one-on-one. So before now, almost every team in the country was bringing up the keeper. Not all of them were as involved as our keeper, Carl, or Morgan, or Began, or Rafferty, but still they were up there as an extra body. So you cannot man mark when you're down a man. So everybody was marking zonal and kind of using the arc as their measurements for their zonal defending. A lot of teams still did that at the weekend. Armagh did, and it did not go well for them at all. They were very much camped inside the arc trying to mark zonally, and Kerry just annihilated them. For us, it was a bit of both. It was a mixture, but it was interesting to watch Dublin against Galway, one of the teams that have been doing, or maybe the best in the country at the moment. It's arguable, but they went completely man-on-man. They trusted all their defenders, midfielders, wing forwards to man-mark, and obviously it worked for Dublin, and maybe they have better defenders than us or other teams, I don't know, but they went for that completely, and it worked for them. So it'll be interesting to see, with 3 weeks to go to championships, what way teams will defend, because it is a change very close to championship. You've been practicing one thing, and it is difficult to try and change your whole way of defending after maybe 3 months of training, zonal defending. So some will stick with that, maybe like Armagh at the weekend, but Dublin, it was obvious they completely went man on man, which was interesting.
Did that change with Conor Carroll not being able to go up the pitch? Did it affect us negatively in the other half? I mean, it's the extra man, so you're obviously going to have more control. We seen actually in Cork, Roscommon, even in the second half, held it for 2 or 3 minutes. I think they actually got a penalty off it because Carroll was always the extra man, so they had that element of control. They don't have that anymore. So is that going to affect Roscommon more so than some teams?
Yeah, in the attack at half, teams are definitely trying to get shots off quicker now because you don't have the backup as turning around and passing. So the whole non-possession in the attacking half isn't as noticeable now. What I think Roscommon were missing was possibly so there's going to be, if teams are man marking, that means you're one-on-one, and you have to at times take on your man. And Roscommon, when they were one-on-one, didn't go by their men, and some teams are doing it, but all teams will have to get better at that, practice and training, whatever it is. And in fairness to players, the way the game was being played, you were going crossing over and trying to find gaps. It wasn't really something that was possible, because if there was 12 back or 13 back, whatever it was, if you even go back to last year with 13 back or 14 at times, you can't really go by 2 or 3 players. So, they weren't used to this, noticing your one-on-one number one, and then when you notice, just take them on and win a free at minimum or go by them. Because once you go by someone now, obviously there's opportunity if everyone else is being man-marked. So that was the trust Dublin had in their defence. If you have really good forwards, even against Dublin, if they're man marking and everybody continues to take on their man, I think it could be very advantageous. So that's a little change maybe in training that all teams will have to do.
Just looking at a couple of players, Conor Cox got his first star. How do you think he did? Because, I mean, I've been on all these podcasts actually probably banging the drum for Conor Cox to get more minutes, because the few he had got, he impressed. Didn't get any minutes in Cork at all last week. So it kind of just showed maybe Davy Burke is changing completely up, because Conor Cox saw no minutes in Cork. Kieran Lennon started in Cork and got no minutes, I think, at the weekend. So he's trying, he's mixing it up every game. How did Conor Cox do in your opinion?
I think much like the other forwards, to be fair, Kieran, Keane, there was some good moments and it was decent overall by the forwards, but it wasn't what we normally say about our forwards or expect from our forwards. Ben as well, like some good moments, but I don't think he scored. But he's not going to be a major scorer for Roscommon. But he didn't even set up that much. Again, the taking on his man didn't quite work for him. He had to come back out and look for players a lot of the time. Everyone up front was okay, but there was no one excellent. Enda got 2 very good scores going forward. But again, he could be better and will be, hopefully. So, I mean, it was okay. It was a decent performance by everyone, but obviously not good enough to beat Cavan and just not good enough in general. I think it's the taking on the man, getting your shot off, and like you mentioned already, there was a lot of easy scores missed as well, or easy chances missed.
Yeah, one of the players that potentially can take on his man and hopefully will going into championship and maybe out of this league campaign is, maybe along with John McManus in fairness, but that should start. But Conor Hand seems to, have established himself in that wing forward position, and he is one of the few players we do have that has that real acceleration. Probably maybe at times can get into trouble the odd time, maybe on Sunday, but he's a weapon hopefully in these new rules with a bit more space that we can use. Yeah,
he's very good. You could see his pace on Sunday again. It was noticeable obviously in the last 2 or 3 games, but his pace is excellent. He kind of just, it's like without any effort, he seems to be going faster than any defenders or anyone that's tracking him, and his timing of runs is brilliant. I would say, like you mentioned there on Sunday, that 1 or 2 moments in the second half, he carried into 2 or 3 players where he didn't really need to. A player like him, if he passes it and goes again, you can't really be stopped. So he just needs to do that a bit more often. You mentioned John McManus. John McManus was actually one of our better players, I would say. And I think that's because it maybe suited him. He wasn't really one of the back 3. Because at times, not all the time, he was on McKiernan and he was going out to midfield. Now, McKiernan did win ball at midfield, but aside from that, I thought John McManus, this game, I think we mentioned it before, does suit him. He's fit, he's strong, he can get up and down the pitch. I think if you can't get up and down the pitch for 50 or 60 minutes, you're in a bit of bother if you're around the middle or you're a wing forward or a wing back. So he's obviously very good at that. So I think being around the middle a bit more on Sunday helped him a lot, helped his game.
So we're kind of in, uncharted waters going into this last game against Westmeath, because usually, in fairness, in Division 2, it's always been fairly plain sailing for the most part going into the last game. I think the last time we were in Division 2, I think we had to beat Galway in the hype. I think Galway changed the whole team, so it was actually a very comfortable win. Usually it's, fairly straightforward. It's actually out of our hands this time. So, I mean, the camp this week, after a loss like that, which I'm sure they probably didn't see coming, now suddenly facing the prospect of being Division 2 again next year. It's out your hands. You just don't know what can happen. Hopefully it goes our way. What's the mood like this week, do you think?
I don't know. I think the mood should be fine. I know Davy Burke came out and said what people might think I think were strange sort of comments after the game, but you should be going to Mullingar and hoping and expecting to beat Westmeath. Westmeath have been very unlucky now.
Yeah.
Westmeath are actually probably better than I thought.
Yeah.
Despite obviously still losing. Did they lose all their games in the end? Yeah. So Roscommon should beat them, but it'll be close again, like all Westmeath games have been. They are better, and they might just even put in a bigger effort for this game on next weekend. So it's hard to know. I think we should be going to still look for promotion, beat Westmeath, and in my opinion, maybe it seems to be wrong going by Davy Burke's comments, but I think it's more likely that Cavan will win and Meath will win than both of them lose or one of them lose. So I still think we could beat Westmeath and be in a league final the following week. So I don't know. I don't really know what those comments were.
Do you think? I mean, look, I'm only going off. I think maybe Davy had a similar interview after, I think, the loss at Dublin last year that caused created a bit of traction. I think maybe that's just in the media showing his disappointment straight after the game. I'd like to think this week, I'm sure getting up to Division 1 was a major target at the start.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, this is probably actually one of the weaker Division 2s that Roscommon have probably been in. I think like the last time you had Galway and Derry. If you're in Division 2 next year, you have Derry coming down and you'll have one of Tyrone, Armagh, Kerry coming down as well. Like realistically, we hopefully need to get out of this Division 2 if you want to play Division 1 in the near future.
I think so, and especially having watched that game, I think the other games, some of them were a bit better, but that's exactly it. Like, it's a long way off the pace of Division 1. So you're coming closer to Championship as the weeks go by. We're only 3 weeks from Championship against London. Yeah. Then another couple of weeks, or is the week, or probably 2 weeks after, against whoever Galway possibly. So, you're operating all year at evidently a lower level based on Sunday and watching the Division 1 games. So you've a lot of catching up to do. I know you'll have Championship, and usually there's time to get up to gear against someone like London because you're expected to win. But still, it's a lower level, clearly. It's a lower pace. So you have Division 1 in terms of that is helpful to be up at that pace coming into Championship. But like we said, and like we've already mentioned today, we've used a lot of players at different teams, so that's positive too. So, both things, it's weighing it up, which is better for the team. I don't know.
Yeah, because you were involved in a few, I suppose a good few of those Division 2 wins. I've always found we've actually been better in Championship when we've been nearly relegated from Division 1. We actually always seem to be better than nearly Division 2 can give you that false sense of security going in, thinking maybe you're better than you are. Now, the flip side is the last 2 winners of the All-Ireland have come from Division 2 in Armagh and Dublin, so I suppose that puts that out. But in my opinion, and this is why it's important to go up, I think, playing Division 1 is always better than playing Division 2 and winning most of your games. If winning 1 or 2 in Division 1 is nearly worth more to you.
Yeah, I think the players want to play in Division 1, definitely. I think looking on, you can see some sense. If you're planning for 2 or 3 or 4 years, you can see some sense in staying in Division 2. But you don't really, as we've said before, as a footballer, you plan to win every game. You want to be in a league final, and then you want to be in Division 1. So that's what the players will be trying to do next week as well. And I just think it might work out that we will win, that Cavan and Meath will win, and that's where we'll be. It could just be that. Now, that Westmeath game will be harder than people. That's not just an automatic win. We're looking at Cavan and Meath to win, but we need to look at ourselves as well, because that's a tricky game.
Football in general as well, these new rules, we've seen the tweaks brought in at the weekend. I suppose the main one is the change in the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper can still go up, but they have to have 4 back. A lot of people enjoying the games. I mean, I've been chatting to you for the last few weeks. You're not so much in favour of these rules.
Like you say tweaks, and people are calling them tweaks. To change from 12v11 to 12v12, isn't that it?
11v11.
11v11.
11v11, yeah.
Is not a tweak. That's changing the whole game 3 weeks out from Championship. Like, it's not a tweak. That's number 1. Number 2, teams will be training with a goalkeeper, and this was very evident at the weekend. Some teams decide to change it completely, abandon it. Armagh, most notably, bringing back Hughes. Yeah. And Hughes cost them the game. There's no doubt about it. His mistakes in the first 20 minutes of the game was over. Because clearly he was rusty, he hadn't been playing. Looks like he probably wasn't even playing challenge matches or anything. So that was the case there. Cluxton came back. I know Farrell said it was a coincidence, but he was back. He's not expected to go up the pitch. But then on the other side, there was Began and Morgan, who continued to go up the pitch. Now, if I was a wing back swapping with them, I'd be highly offended that my goalkeeper is being told you're a better footballer than your wing back. So you can go forward, and the wing back, who's not a great footballer, can go back. So I don't know, I'd be offended if I was a wing back, but they did score.
Yeah. And
they both contributed. But I think for most teams, that's not going to happen. We saw Carroll was forward in every game with the old rules and the new old rules, but he's not forward anymore. So it's not a tweak. It's a total change of the game. We mentioned 1-on-1 defending. It goes from zonal to 1-on-1 defending, possibly for most teams. So it's not a tweak. And this 4 up and 3 up and everything, for me, it's fundamentally wrong. And the restriction of the goalkeeper in terms of receiving a pass is fundamentally wrong. As I said to you before, I still can't think of any sport on the field or on a court where the movement of a player is restricted, or where you have to look around and, oh, I can't pass it to that player right now. I can't think of any sport. So I don't know where this idea came from the FRC. I think it's unnatural. And then what you're seeing and what you're going to continue to see is unnatural tweaks, as you call them, continuously happening. This is the last one for this year, probably. Tweaks again in the winter, tweaks again next spring. Because it's all fundamentally unnatural. I saw players at the weekend, and there was 2 huge instances where the ref, 2 linesmen, 4 umpires completely got it wrong. One for Roscommon, one for Cavan on the halfway line, where there was clearly only 2 and 2 both times. Like, everyone in the whole place was shouting. They still didn't see it. So, and then you saw players looking at the line and looking back and stopping dead on the line. I saw John McManus stopping dead on the line.
Sure, we're allowing the 4 metres now.
Yeah, the 4 metres, like, what's that? So, I mean, it's unnatural. It's fundamentally unnatural. What I like and what's normal to the game of football would be the solo and go. If you want to get rid of dissent, bring it up 50 metres by all means. It does seem to have got rid of it. Cavan got caught twice for that. Actually, we got 2 points out of that. So that's fine. It's got rid of most dissent. But they've changed the sport. And I also agree with McGeeney that it seems that you can't say anything negative about the FRC. It's like they're too big to fail. These 3 people, Fitzmaurice, Horn and Gavin, are too big. It's too big to fail, and you can't say anything. I'm not saying anything negative about it. I think there's fundamental flaws in it, but I think there's some things that they should have introduced without changing the whole sport, which I think they have done.
But I suppose the argument from people is the game not more enjoyable at the moment?
Well, the game I was at the weekend wasn't hugely more enjoyable.
Would it have been more enjoyable under the new rules, or the new rules, the old rules last year?
You see, what I think was happening with the old rules was it was going through an evolution, and you can see it in sports around the world. I think coaches were just on the brink of changing to more positive, more progressive football, just in the last couple of years, and that's when they decided to change it. So yes, there was 8 or 9 years where people followed Jim McGuinness in 2013, and they did it badly, and it was poor enough football at times, absolutely. But it was beginning to change, because what happens is, it's like Pep Guardiola, everybody copied him, and then everyone becomes even, and then some other coach will come up with something to break down that defence or whatever it might be, and they'll all copy them for 8 or 9 years. But they don't change the rules of the sport because Pep Guardiola came up with a different tactic than everybody else. And you don't need to change the rules because Jim McGuinness came up with a different system of play that everybody eventually copied. It became even. And then once it becomes everybody even, some coach will change the way they play and it'll be better than that. And then they'll start copying that. And I think that it was just beginning to change to more positive play, because that's ultimately the only way to beat teams is by positive play. So I think it was just beginning to change. Unfortunately, the timing of it was wrong, I think, in terms of fundamentally changing the game, which I think they did.
Like, you look back at the All-Ireland final last year, like, that was our showpiece. That was a very poor game. Like, how many memorable games did we get last year in the championship?
Yeah, we probably didn't get that many. That's fine.
But that's my point. You're saying it was about to change.
Yeah, I think it was. If you left it I think if it was left for another couple of years, because it was beginning around the country with coaches changing, trying to beat. So you copy a system, you get as good as that system, then you figure out a way to beat the system by doing something different. That's the stage we were at. And that takes 7, 8, 9 years. I don't like the 80s in soccer was different. The 90s in soccer was different. Then there was Pep Guardiola, and then there was Barcelona, and everyone copied that, and then there was whatever. It's changing again to something different. Like, you see it in different countries in the world where teams are playing differently again, because you can't play that system now because everyone has it figured out and how to defend it. So I think it was about to change, but I don't think they're going to listen now, unfortunately, because they're just too big. And this is another point of it, is those 3 personalities I mentioned have changed our sport, which they have done.
Well, we should just say there's more than them 3 on the FRC.
No, but they're the names that are generally in the media and the public eye, and people mention them. But they've changed our sport, and it's interesting. Those 3 managers or coaches had huge success with the old rules. They all just finish up and then they say, oh, we want to change the sport completely, even though we had success with football as we knew it. So it's just interesting that that's the way it came about.
So you apart from, say, you like the solo and go, and the descent.
I think the kickouts is wrong. I think the keeper should be able to kick it anywhere. I mean, it's
so
just...
was that not very... I mean...
And the FRC, what's interesting, the FRC released the stats, which you can't argue with. Everybody can keep stats nowadays, as you know. So there's no more kick passing. There's no more high fielding, according to the stats. The only thing there was more of was scoring. And that was with the 12v11. So, of course, there's going to be more scoring. So we'll have to wait another 5 games, I think, the way to do those stats. 5 games later, we'll see with the 11v11 if there's still more scoring. And you have to take away the 2-pointers, don't forget. So, I don't know. That's the only thing to the box that they actually ticked in their set of criteria to improve the game is scoring. So they didn't get any more kicking. They didn't get any more high fielding. So I don't know.
Well, I can only go off the games I've seen from Roscommon. I appreciate the stats, but I mean, do people not want to see kickouts go longer? I mean, we've seen so many times. We'll just use the example of Roscommon. We're playing Cavan. They're playing against the wind. They'll drop everyone back behind the 45, and the Cavan keeper will just jog out and tap it to 10 yards to a
Well, if you're talking about against the wind, and it's slow build up. That's even warped the game more, the wind. Like, look at Monaghan again at the weekend. You can't catch up with them. Look at Galway the week before. Look at any game with wind now. It's over at half time. So if you're talking about wind, it's worse now.
Well, we were saying, is it not better to play with the wind of the second half? Only a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it skewed the game completely. I don't know. I think some of it is fine. Some of the, as you say, the tweak, what I would call tweaks, will be the solo and go, the descent rule. I think they're all fine. There's a few little bits in between that are probably okay as well. But the kick out, restricting where you can kick it to, which means it's just a 50-50 contest 90% of the time. The halfway line thing, and the restricting the goalkeeper in terms of, I can't pass to that player who's also on my team. It's unnatural, and I think it's fundamentally flawed because it's unnatural for a player. It's like when you do training games as a coach and you put a restriction in trying to train something, like one play, for example. It doesn't work out because a player gets caught in a corner and they obviously have to take a second play. It's kind of like that. You're caught in the corner as a cornerback and you see your teammate and you can't pass to him, or there's a ball floating around the halfway line, you can't cross it. It's unnatural. Fine if people like it, but what you're going to continue to see are unnatural tweaks to figure it out because it's fundamentally unnatural.
So do you feel the FRC, obviously they've brought these, we'll keep calling them tweaks for now, even though you know, they're not tweaks in your eyes.
No.
Do you think they're going to just, I mean, I don't know how, they can't really change much more. I don't think going into championship, we're so close to now. Surely you have to keep the same. I know they didn't do it for the league, but say after it, do you think after the All-Ireland, say end of July, they're going to look back and they're going to force these through? This is kind of a trial year. Yeah. They're going to force these through.
Well, what I think is there's going to be more changes because what they've come across in 5 games, something that was completely wrong according to the FRC, even though you and many others seem to enjoy the keeper coming up in the 12v11 for some reason.
I didn't enjoy that. But.
Well, a lot of people seem to enjoy that and they got rid of it. So what is their guiding principles? If it was to score lots and they wanted a 12v11, why change it after 5 games? I don't know. What's the reason for that? I haven't heard them say what the reason was for that. So I don't know what their guiding principles are, and I think it's fundamentally flawed in terms of being a natural game now. So I think they'll change it again after championship, whatever they come across. It took 5 games for them to change these few things, so I think it'll be changed again, whatever it might be. I think because of the people involved and how public it was, I think they'll probably continue to go with the majority of it, but I think that's unfortunate. I think it's like Joe Brolly wrote something on a Saturday evening and it was published in the Independent and they just went with it and now they're stuck with it. But we don't have to be stuck with it. I don't know. If most people like it, fine, but I think it's fundamentally flawed.
So summer of football ahead.
Summer of football ahead. Summer of great football. Look, the football is fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem. The game was fine on Sunday. Most of the games are enjoyable to watch, as you say. absolutely fine. But I just don't like the idea that the restriction idea that there's a halfway line that you have to swap or cross, and then there's a player that I can't pass to. I just don't know of any other sport where it happens. There's obviously backcourt in basketball, but you can still move to the backcourt. You're not restricted in terms of your movement. So I can't think. I just don't know where they're getting these ideas from when it doesn't exist in any other sport that they decide to come up with their own sport. That's all.
Do we see the benefit of it for, say, the Kerry penalty? Like Kerry, lovely kick passing. They wouldn't have been able to probably do that if they couldn't keep Clifford and a couple of them up. Like we're going to see, like David Clifford scored 10 points at the weekend.
Yeah, I know he's done that before.
And he has, but I suppose we're showcasing more David Clifford. We're showcasing Shane Walsh has been excellent in the league. Jeremy's had some good games. We're showcasing our talent, our forwards now that David Clifford's been having 2 or 3 men hanging out with him at times.
Yeah, and still scoring 8 or 9 points because he's just that good, obviously. But yeah, and it will be one-on-one defending and one-on-one attacking. And just going back to Roscommon, our only defender that was actually able to get contact on and tackle players, which every defender is going to have to learn how to do now, was Colin Neary when he came on. He was excellent again. So going by his performance at the weekend, I can't see how you won't start him come championship, just in terms of the one-on-one now defending and the tackling, because he was really good at. He really went out and tackled his man, which Dublin were obviously doing or trusted their players to do against Galway, as I mentioned earlier. So that will be interesting to watch, because defenders haven't been doing that the last few years. It's a whole new development now that they have to learn quickly how to one-on-one defend, and he's particularly good at that. So look, the games are going to be fine. They're going to be fine to watch. I just don't like that they've come up with a new sport.
I actually feel that the rules are having a bigger impact on the inter-county game than the club game. We've had a few club games. Haven't really seen a whole pile of difference. I know the quality is far less. Yeah. I think probably you're going to notice a lot more when you see the real top players. And I suppose naturally enough, they spend more time together. Tactics, every little detail is going to be put into these.
I suppose it's not as noticeable. It's hard to know, but again, it's still going to be more difficult for referees. Obviously, like I mentioned, 2 big incidents. Lucky they evened out, I suppose, in the Hyde the last day, where 7 or 8 officials didn't see it, or it seemed to me didn't want to see it, because the whole place was roaring at them. So that was just interesting. But maybe the 4 meters is just whatever you want now. It's everything seems to be referee's discretion now. The advantage, I think, has changed to that as well. Discretion, it's not 10 seconds or whatever it might be. So another one, actually an interesting one that happened at the week. Someone's got a shot from a 2-pointer that I didn't. I can see the logic in it. A shot for a 2-pointer, and the keeper was just reaching up under the crossbar and just happened to flick it over the bar, and that's because it wasn't directly over the crossbar. The player didn't get 2 points, so that was I can't think of the Roscommon player that got. So it ended up being a 1-pointer, and everyone in the crowd was wondering, didn't know that rule. So there's new little things for when you have over 40 changes. You're going to learn something new every day if you're not playing it, I suppose.
Yeah, one last thing, the Hoosier as well. Are you in favour of it or not? Because there was a bit of controversy at the end, I think, as well. Davy Burke wasn't too happy. I think Jeremy had a free. I think he spoke to the referee. Was there another play? Because this new thing again, another tweak, that if the Hoosier goes but the ball is still in play, you can play on. And exactly. So there was a bit of confusion about that.
Yeah, but I think in this case, we'll say the Hoosier and the referee were correct, because according to my judgment of it, the keeper hadn't actually kicked the ball out. It was a split second before he kicked the ball. Therefore, the ball wasn't in play. So it was a kick out.
This is going to be the thing. Could we see
keepers
delaying?
Well, you can, but is there a 30-second rule? Did they increase it to 30, or is it back to referee's discretion?
It's 30 now, I think.
It's 30 now with a bit of discretion. So you could work that last play like possibly he did, because the clock was the opposite to that Cavan goalkeeper, so he could see that. So he probably did do that on purpose. But in this case, we'll say whether he did it on purpose or not, the Hoosier had just gone, so the ball wasn't in place. So I think the referee and the Hoosier was. I don't mind the Hoosier; it's fine. It's very clear, and you know when the game is going to be over, and that's it. As a spectator, I think it's good as well. I don't mind that either. Again, that's a tweak. That's not changing the sport, so it's fine.
Change the sport for the better. Well done to the FRC.
Yeah.
Look, Conor, thanks very much for joining me. And I suppose best of luck to Roscommon travelling to Mullingar, all the fans as well, going to Westmeath on Sunday. We'll have a review next week of that one.